time for us to do this. It is time for this structure to be changed. It is time for us to be good stewards and save the money of the American taxpayer. This is another step toward that goal, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from California.
Mr. Speaker, I'd now like to recognize for 2 minutes Congresswoman Tammy Baldwin from Wisconsin, a highly valued member of the committee.
The gentlelady is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentlelady. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to this bill, which prohibits federal funding of national public radio and the use of federal funds to acquire radio content. I'm incredibly disappointed in my Republican colleagues for this needless attempt to cripple NPR and threaten thousands of jobs in the public broadcasting community. Without so much as a single hearing on the subject, this bill dissolves a vital public radio system depended upon by millions of Americans across the country. 27 million Americans listen to NPR each week, and back home in Wisconsin, nearly 450,000 people listen to Wisconsin Public Radio weekly over 3 statewide networks. In addition, 2.3 million visitors visited the Wisconsin Public Radio websites in 2010. Those who listen to Wisconsin Public Radio know how much there is to love. Wisconsin Public Radio provides over 9 hours each weekday of interactive radio programming engaging Wisconsin residents and experts from around the world in public policy, culture, arts, and educational discussions. And because Wisconsin is largely a rural state, our citizens rely on over-the-air broadcasting more than almost any other state. This means that Wisconsin audiences significantly rely on public radio. Not only would this horrible bill rushed before us today cripple local radio stations and programming that we enjoy in Wisconsin, it severely harms listeners' access to national shows like Morning Edition, All Things Considered, This American Life, A Prairie Home Companion, and one of my personal favorites, What Do You Know?, among many others. Mr. Speaker, the Republican majority is clearly not interested in creating jobs or dealing seriously with this deficit. Despite all of the talk, we're here today considering legislation that attacks public radio. I strongly oppose this bill, and I strongly urge all of my colleagues to do so too.
The gentlelady from California reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. King.
The gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentlelady from Tennessee for yielding time, and I come to the floor to rise in support of this bill. In that, the federal government has a few constitutional duties, and we seem to have taken on a lot of federal responsibilities. And as time goes on, every time we see a need, we think we have to tap into the taxpayers and create another government function. But this is not one of those functions that is an enumerated power of the United States Congress. It is not something that we are compelled to do. It is something that it is discretionary. I mean, we're into this operations of a time of austerity, a time when we see what's happened as a prelude to the American economy. If we just look over to Europe and places like Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, Spain, for example, that's the direction we're heading with our economy. And as we see this discretionary spending grow, along with our entitlements grow and our economy contract, we also need to take a look at these items that are at our discretion as to whether or not to fund. And I think that the image that we have seen on the videos tells us something about the internal culture of NPR. And if you haven't seen the videos, or if you've just seen the little text in there, that doesn't give you the real sense of what was going on in that conversation with Mr. Schiller at that table for 2 hours that day. If you look at the whole video, you'll see the cast of the character and the content reflected the culture of NPR. In the same way, in my view, that the videos of Acorn reflected accurately the actual internal culture of Acorn, we shut off the funding to Acorn for that reason. Of all the data that we put out on Acorn, you couldn't be convinced to shut off the funding until you saw the reality of the video. And then we looked into Planned Parenthood. And of all the data that was brought out here to the floor of the House, Mr. Speaker, and I compliment Mike Pence for doing so and all of those who stood with him and for life, still, the American people didn't understand the real culture of Planned Parenthood until they saw the video. Of all the data that's been brought out, we still haven't seen the real culture of Planned Parenthood, or of the NPR.
30 seconds to the
I thank the gentlelady. Of all of the video or all the data that we've seen, we still have not absorbed the real culture of NPR until we saw the video of that dinner, those 2 hours that day. And so I stand in support of this act and this resolution, and I believe it's time for us to draw a bright line in our budget and cut this funding, and I'll be voting to adopt the cutting of the funding, as will my colleagues. I thank you very much, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from Tennessee reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from California.
Mr. Speaker, may I inquire how much time we have left on our side?
The gentlelady from California has 13 minutes remaining. The gentlelady from Tennessee has 11 minutes.
Thank you. I now would like to call upon Congressman Ed Markey, whom I think possesses the broadest and the deepest knowledge about telecommunications in the Congress.
And how much time does the gentlelady?
2 minutes for Mr. Markey.
Gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentlelady. In an era when Edwardian drama is the only way to characterize the way in which cable news deals with the public affairs of our country, there is an oasis of real news that begins with Morning Edition, goes right through the day to All Things Considered, which focuses on that most unusual of all subjects, hard news that the American people can use to make judgments about the affairs of our country and the affairs of the world. It's an oasis of information that is supplemented, yes, by Lake Wobegon, On Point, other programs that raise the cultural level but serve as a place where people, 170 million Americans, can go to get real information. Now, what is this debate all about? Well, it's really about an ancient animosity which the Republican Party has had to the very creation of NPR, through Newt Gingrich, through the early years of the 21st century, right up to today, where it's on a list of grievances which they have about this ability of NPR to provide this news and information. So that's what the debate's about. It's not, you don't have to be Dick Tracy to figure out what this debate is all about. They have, right from the very beginning of the creation of this network, wanted to destroy it. And I think that they are going to run into a razor blade sharp edge reaction from the American public as they find that in place of Morning Edition and Car Talk and All Things Considered, they want to move to radio silence. And when the American people find out about that, they are going to be outraged. I would vote no and urge strongly a no vote for all members of this body.
The gentlelady from California reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to address one thing. This is not an ancient animosity. I don't think I'm quite that old. And I don't think you have to be Dick Tracy to figure out what this debate is about. This debate is about saving taxpayer money. We do not have a revenue problem in this town. We have a spending problem in this town. The federal government does not have the money to fund these programs. We are borrowing 42 cents of every single dollar that we spend. We have to get the spending under control. We have to create an environment where the American people can get back to work. And we're talking about funding for NPR. I just gave the demographics. It is a wealthy educated, listening audience. If people want this programming, Mr. Speaker, they're going to be willing to pay for it, but the American taxpayer has said get NPR out of our pocket. Now, I pull the sponsors for NPR, and I think my colleagues would be interested in this. When you go to the NPR website and you start pulling the sponsors, they don't sell advertising, but they do have many sponsors. They have some sponsors that land in the $1 million plus category, $1 million plus. And then they list sponsors all the way down to $5,000 to $999. This is how wealthy the sponsorship base and the subscribership base is for them. It is time for us to remove the federal support system that they have relied on. They have told us they do not need the money. We need to cut the umbilical cord. We need to let NPR see what they can do on their own, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from California.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the Dean of the House of Representatives, Mr. Dingell from Michigan.
The gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes. Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the distinguished gentlewoman from California for her yielding me this time, and I commend her for her opposition to this outrageous piece of legislation. I rise in strenuous opposition to H.R. 1076, visited upon us without any attention to the regular order, hastened to the floor in defiance of the commitments of the Speaker, and without any hearings or consideration by the Committee on Energy and Commerce. No opportunity for the public to speak or to be heard on what we're doing. The majority continues to force members of this body to waste time and energy of the House, a critical asset of this nation, on political witch hunts with respect to health care and the environment. Now we find that we're adding public broadcasting to this list. Public broadcasting is a national treasure. It provides us impartial, honest coverage of facts and news. It provides information not available elsewhere. And yes, it sheds a little bit of culture on our people, something which probably my Republican colleagues find offensive. It has done so at very low cost to the public, with huge contributions from the people for the support of this. This legislation is going to prohibit local stations like Michigan Radio in Ann Arbor, and in your own districts and in your states, from using money from the corporation for public broadcasting to require or produce any public radio programs. As regards process, we are completely evading the processes and the commitments that are to be found in the rules and the pronouncements of the leadership on the other side. And we are finding that the history of this, which goes back to the 1934 Communications Act in the Commerce Committee, has been grossly disregarded. So much for regular order, and so much for transparency that the majority made such a big fuss about at the beginning of this year. What's next? Are we going to amend the Endangered Species Act on the floor to declare an open season on the big bird, or upon programs which educate our kids or which contribute to the advancement of our society? I urge my colleagues to oppose H.R. 1076. It's a bad bill.
The gentlelady reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from Tennessee.
Reserve.
Gentlelady from California.
I'm pleased to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Blumenauer, who is the chairman of the House Caucus on Public Broadcasting.
The gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentlelady. I want to make 5 basic points. Number 1, there are no savings to the taxpayer in this bill. It simply passes on higher costs and fewer choices to local stations. Second, it's not going to stop NPR, which will go on in New York and Los Angeles and even Portland, Oregon. What it will cripple is what happens in smaller local stations around the country who rely on NPR and other public broadcasting entities for their content. My good friend from Tennessee just went through all the steps that are necessary to produce local content. That's complex and it's expensive. That's why they voluntarily buy Morning Edition or Prairie Home Companion or Car Talk. NPR never said it didn't need the money. They're relying on a discredited video that was exposed by Glenn Beck's website, of all places. Our friends should talk to the thousands of volunteers at home who rely upon public broadcasting resources to provide the content that Americans love. Reject this travesty.
The gentlelady reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In response to this, there are no savings. And may I point my colleagues to a CRS report on the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, federal funding and issues, and I will be happy to submit this for the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In reading from that, NPR Incorporated, which oversees the NPR system, states that annually NPR receives direct funding in the range of $1.5 million to $3 million from 3 federal agencies and the Corporation for Public Broadcast. Those are the National Endowment for the Arts, the CPB, Department of Commerce's National Telecommunications and Information Administration, and the Department of Education. Now, Mr. Speaker, what we are saying, you can't do that anymore. This is part of the, this is one of the steps that we have to take in order to straighten out this budgeting process. Our country does not have the money to spend on this. NPR does not need the money. They will not be able to get these grants. We will save those dollars. The American taxpayer has said, get your fiscal house in order. This is a step in that process. I know they don't like it, but you know what? This is something we can do. This is something we will do. This is something the American people want to make certain that we do so that we get this nation back on a firm fiscal and sound fiscal policy. The day has come that the out-of-control federal spending has to stop. A good place to start is by taking NPR out of the taxpayer pocket, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from California.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Cicilline.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentlelady from California. I rise in strong opposition to H.R. 1076 to defund National Public Radio. Overwhelmingly, my Rhode Island constituents agree this legislation is no more than an ideological attack on public broadcasting, masquerading as a fiscal issue. And that's because federal funding accounts for less than 0.03% of the annual federal budget. And in addition to that, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says that this legislation will not reduce the deficit by a single penny. Without as much as a hearing, this legislation undermines public broadcasting, a system that 34 million Americans turn to weekly and in which Americans across the political spectrum place high trust. These funding restrictions will devastate public radio, the economy of the public radio. It will harm local stations. It will inhibit their ability to attract audiences, develop stable local revenue bases, and most importantly, their ability to continue to produce local programming. Public broadcasting gives voice to the smallest and most diverse communities in our country. I know firsthand the high-quality broadcasting that NPR provides in Rhode Island and all across this country. It would also endanger 9,000 jobs at local public radio stations in communities across the country. I urge my colleagues to vote against this assault on the free exchange of ideas and instead support a democracy that continues to listen carefully to its people. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from Tennessee.
Reserve.
The gentlelady from California. Gentlelady from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to yield a minute to the gentlewoman from New York, Congresswoman Nita Lowey, who is a one of the great advocates of public broadcasting in the Congress.
The gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentlelady. And, Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition. 170 million Americans use public media for vital news. 61% of voters who support deficit reduction also support funding for public broadcasting. Yet the assault on public broadcasting continues when jobs and the economy should be our top priority. This outrageous bill would prohibit public radio stations from using federal funds to acquire any radio programming from any outside source. That means that your local stations may not be able to air quality programming. We were not sent here to silence Prairie Home Companion, Car Talk, Morning Edition. Let's stop trying to put Diane Rehm out of work and focus on putting more Americans back to work. Reject this bill.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentlelady from California reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from Tennessee.
Reserve.
Gentlelady from Tennessee continues to reserve her time. Gentlelady from California is recognized.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield a minute to the distinguished gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Larson, the chairman of the House Democratic Caucus.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentlelady and wish her a happy St. Patrick's Day. Mr. Speaker, there's a pattern here. Americans are seeing through what it amounts to an ideological purge. In Wisconsin, under the guise of dealing with the deficit, they're taking away collective bargaining rights. In Washington, under the guise of dealing with the deficit, they are cutting Planned Parenthood and taking away women's rights. Under the guise of dealing with the deficit, they are planning to privatize Social Security and voucher Medicare, as if they had anything to do with causing the deficit and the problem we're in. And under the guise of saving taxpayers' dollars, what they're doing is silencing NPR, not because it saves money, but because it is not on the same ideological frequency of the extreme right. I yield back my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from California reserves. Gentlelady from Tennessee reserves. The gentlelady from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield a minute to the gentlewoman from California, Congresswoman Lynn Woolsey.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, when is the majority going to try to solve a real problem? The reaction to unemployment is, so be it. The reaction to an immoral Afghanistan policy is a big shrug. But a modest investment in educational, commercial-free programming, now that's a national crisis. I guess they figure if they can't catch bin Laden, they might as well go after a Prairie Home Companion. Public broadcasting, Mr. Speaker, performs a vital function in a democracy. It's also twice as popular as the Afghanistan war. And it supports 21,000 jobs. That's 21,000 jobs more than the Republican agenda would create. Vote against H.R. 1076. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentlelady from California reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from Tennessee reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from California.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Doggett.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
While Republicans insist today that NPR is a four-letter word, the real attack is on KUT and similar local public radio across America. 250,000 Texans rely upon KUT's in-depth radio news scrutiny of the Texas legislature and local government. The only bias of those who begin with Morning Edition is a bias for truth. My constituents turn to KUT because they want fact-based, not faux-based, not Fox-based coverage. Like their continued assault on PBS, these Republicans just can't tell the difference between big government and Big Bird. While they pander to Wall Street, they continue to want to terminate support of Sesame Street. All things considered, their attack really has nothing to do with balancing the budget. It is an ideological crusade against balanced news and educational program. Cutting access to public knowledge decreases our ability to hold our government accountable. Don't weaken our democracy by weakening this vital source of reality-based journalism. Don't cut KUT. Public radio serves the public interest. I yield back.
Gentlelady from California reserves. Gentlelady from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I yield 1 minute to one of our freshman members from the Florida Panhandle, Mr. Sutherland.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute. Without objection, so ordered.
You know, we talk about Big Bird, and that sounds wonderful. We had a couple Big Birds in my family. We have 4 small children, and they love Big Bird. But I will tell you this: when the CEO of Sesame Street is compensated $956,000 in 2008 compensation, that's over double what the leader of the free world makes. Think about that. $956,000. When, in the same year, Sesame Street received $211 million in toy and consumer product sales. So to stand here and say that we have the luxury at this incredibly critical crisis moment in our deficit struggles, that we have the luxury of making sure that PBS can pay Mrs. Kerger $632,000 in salary, and that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting can pay its president and CEO $300,000 apiece. I mean, really, are we serious? Are we serious? We can do better. We must do better. Madam Chair, I yield back my time.
Gentlelady from Tennessee reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from California has 3 minutes remaining. The gentlelady from Tennessee has 6 minutes remaining.
Did you say 3 minutes, Mr. Speaker?
Correct.
Thank you.
Gentlelady from California.
At this time, I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman, the great Irishman from Virginia, Mr. Moran.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, National Public Radio has the strongest intellectual, artistic, and informational, in-depth content of any radio network in this country, because its content is not compromised by corporate ownership. I love it, but I won't lose it. It's the rural stations that depend on NPR for half their budget. They can't afford to lose this national asset, nor can the 36 million people who rely on emergency alerts from NPR in times of crisis. The commercial market won't do that because there's no profit in it. Nor can the visually and hearing impaired afford to lose the technology NPR developed. This has nothing to do with the deficit. It's an infinitesimal fraction of our national debt. It jeopardizes 9,000 jobs, and it distracts us from solving the real problems that this nation faces while trying to destroy one of the primary sources of an enlightened electorate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentlelady from California reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I think that this is one of those things that's kind of what's wrong around here. Everybody says, don't do this, that's not much money, that's not much money. You know what, Mr. Speaker? It all adds up. And the American people have had it with the federal government spending money they do not have. With that, I want to yield 1 minute to a wonderful new member who has joined us from Dunn, North Carolina, Ms. Elmers.
The gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you very much. And, Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of this legislation. Let us be clear, this legislation would simply prohibit direct federal funds, taxpayer money, from being made available to the National Public Radio, or as we know it, NPR, and would prohibit public radio stations from using federal funds to pay for their NPR dues. The bill would also prohibit public radio stations from using federal funds for the production or acquisition of programming. I want to be very clear. I am in support of the arts. However, I do not believe that NPR has the right to public funds from our hard-earned taxpayer dollars when they receive plenty of funding from private sources. These prohibitions would not affect a local radio station's ability to use the federal funding for their operations or for the production of their own programming. NPR already receives direct federal funding through the Corporation of Public Broadcasting. Department of Education, Department of Commerce, and the National Endowment for the Arts. They also get a considerable amount of money from local radio stations. Why do they need more? Thank you, and I yield back the remainder of my time.
Gentlelady from Tennessee reserves the balance of her time. The gentlelady from California.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to inquire how much time we have left
The
on our
gentlelady from California has 2 minutes remaining. The gentlelady from Tennessee has 4.5 minutes remaining.
And how many speakers does the gentlelady from Tennessee still have on her side?
Mr. Speaker, once they finish their speakers, then I will close for our side.
So how many speakers do you have?
I repeat, once they finish with their speakers, I'll be ready to close for our side.
Well, I'll reserve my time, and
I believe the gentlelady from Tennessee is prepared to close, so the gentlelady from California is recognized.
Well, then I will yield 1 minute to the gentleman, the brilliant, brilliant gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Holt.
I'm sorry, for how long?
For 1 minute.
For 1 minute, the gentleman is recognized.
I thank the gentlelady. Mr. Speaker, NPR provides news and cultural enrichment. Yes, enrichment that adds value to the lives of millions of Americans. And it reaches into all parts of our country, even into that fact-free universe where the other side seems to be living, saying that factual information is somehow a liberal bias. You know, we talk about the need for a well-informed public. Just this morning, we had a reminder of the benefits that NPR brings to America. Today, there was a news report on the slow progress the U.S. Army is making towards seeing that wounded soldiers get the Purple Hearts they deserve. General Chiarelli, the Army's second-in-command, remarked in this story that it was previous reporting by NPR that was removing the confusion and the misunderstanding that had prevented deserving soldiers from getting the Purple Heart recognition. This is good reporting. The other side seems to think that this is, wait, don't tell me, biased reporting. We need NPR.
Gentlelady from California has 1 minute remaining.
Reserve.
Is the gentlelady from Tennessee prepared to close?
Mr. Speaker, once they have finished with all of their speakers, I will have the right to close on the bill, and I continue to reserve our time until such time as they have exhausted their speakers.
That is correct. The gentlelady from California has 1 minute remaining.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Maloney.
Mr. Speaker, a study conducted by the Center for International and Security Studies found that those who said they received most of their news from NPR were only about 1/4 as likely to hold a demonstrably false belief about important issues relating to the Iraq War as those who primarily consume news from our colleagues' favorite news channel. A similar study conducted last year on mainly economic issues produced similar results. Those who primarily listened to NPR were considerably less likely to hold demonstrably false beliefs. So now our colleagues across the aisle want to pull the plug on NPR, one of the most accurate sources of demonstrably true news and information. Our colleagues want to fire the messenger. This is not a move to create jobs or save money. This is a move to save face at the expense of truth. And I believe that such a move comes at a price that we simply cannot afford to pay. This country needs NPR. Vote against the Republican bill.
The gentlelady from California's time has expired. The gentlelady from Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself the balance of our time. I do think that our colleagues across the aisle are missing the point on this. We are responsible for making certain that this fiscal house gets in order. This is just another of those steps. This bill is not about taking NPR off the air. There's nothing here that says you will take NPR off the air. What it simply says is if you are an affiliate station and you want to pay NPR dues, you can't use taxpayer dollars. If you want to buy NPR programming, you cannot use taxpayer dollars for that. The taxpayers want NPR out of their pocket. Now, there is plenty of popular programming out there, and if listeners want to hear that, we're not trying to disenfranchise those listeners. Indeed, if listeners like the NPR they have, they can keep it. But what we're saying is they need to raise the money for this. We went through the demographics for NPR. College educated, 63% have full-time jobs. Their average household income is upwards of $86,000 a year. They have a list of sponsors that give over $1 million a year to NPR. NPR itself has said they do not need our taxpayer funding. So this is a place that we can go and save some money. Now, to those that say it is a job-killing program, may I remind you, indeed, to develop local programming, I articulated 17 different positions that are attached to creating even one radio show. And unlike some of my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, I fully believe there are talented people, talented writers and editors and programmers all across this great nation who would love to have a platform for the great ideas and the content that they would like to create. I want to encourage all of my colleagues to take a step in the right direction in getting our fiscal house in order. The time has come for us to claw back this money. The time has come for us to send a message. We need to get NPR out of the taxpayer's pocket. I encourage a yes vote on H.R. 1076, and I yield back the balance of our time.
Gentlelady yields back the balance of her time. All time for debate has expired. Pursuant to House Resolution 174, the previous question is ordered on the bill. The question is on the engrossment and third reading of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it, and the measure will be read for the third time.
A bill to prohibit federal funding of national public radio and the use of federal funds to acquire radio content.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Ohio seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I have a motion to recommit at the desk.
Is the gentlelady opposed to the bill?
I am opposed to the bill.
The gentlelady qualifies. The clerk will report the motion.
Ms. Sutton of Ohio moves to recommit the bill, H.R. 1076, to the Committee on Energy and Commerce with instructions to report the same back to the House forthwith with the following amendment. Page 2, after line 24, insert the following. 3. Amber Alerts. Notwithstanding any other provision of this Act, nothing in this Act shall limit the eligibility of an organization described in subsection A1 or an entity that makes a payment described in subsection A2 to receive federal funds to broadcast or otherwise disseminate alerts issued by the Amber Alert Communications Network regarding abducted children.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentlelady from Ohio is recognized for 5 minutes in support of her motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleagues, there are many times when we come to this floor and engage in heated debate, and we have heard some heated debate on the bill before us. But in this moment, Mr. Speaker, my amendment offers us the opportunity to come together and do something extraordinarily important, and that is to protect our children. Mr. Speaker, I happen to oppose the underlying bill, but regardless of how one feels about the underlying legislation, this amendment is something upon which we can all agree. Nothing is more precious, more valuable than our children. And when a child goes missing in a community, no one asks whether he or she is a Republican or a Democrat. We simply ask, how can we help find the child and return them safely home? When the unthinkable happens, we all seek in common purpose to do all that we can to ensure a successful outcome. And it is in pursuit of that successful outcome that this amendment is offered today. This amendment will ensure that when a child goes missing, every resource available to find that child and to return him or her to safety will be utilized, including NPR's satellite. We all know that when a child is abducted, a rapid and coordinated response can make a life and death difference. And this amendment will make sure that we do not undermine the Amber Alert system that has been effectively used to recover missing children. The Amber Alert system was created after Amber Hagerman, a 9-year-old girl from Arlington, Texas, was abducted while riding her bicycle and then brutally murdered in 1996. Her kidnapping and murder still remain unsolved. Amber's tragic story led to a partnership between broadcasters and police to develop an early warning system to help find abducted children. Named in Amber's memory, it stands for America's Missing Broadcasting Emergency Response. The Amber Alert program began as a local effort in Texas and has since grown into a successful national program saving hundreds of lives of children. Today, all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands all have Amber Alert plans. The Amber Alert program instantly galvanizes the entire community to assist in the search for and the safe recovery of an abducted child. Since its inception, the Amber Alert has helped to find and successfully recover 538 children nationwide. Mr. Speaker, we go to great lengths to protect our children from sexual predators and abductors, and rightfully so. We talk to them about keeping themselves safe. We teach them how to recognize and avoid dangerous situations, and we talk to them about making smart decisions. Today, we have the chance to make a decision to ensure that regardless of how we feel about the underlying bill, we will not undermine the effectiveness of our Amber Alert network system. NPR is designated as a disseminator of Amber Alerts via arrangements with the Department of Justice and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Deployment of next-generation emergency alert systems is in progress, and NPR is positioned to play a vital, necessary role with its satellite-based capabilities. Recklessly eliminating funding critical to the effective functioning of the Amber Alert system would be a tragic mistake. Children of every age, gender, and race are vulnerable to child abduction, and when it happens, time is the enemy. Communities must mobilize quickly. The widespread use of Amber Alert Network is the nation's most powerful tool for bringing abducted children home. Amber Alerts also serve as deterrents to those who would prey upon our children. Amber Alert cases demonstrate that some perpetrators release the abducted child after hearing the Amber Alert on the radio or seeing it on television. From my hometown of Copley, Ohio, a 1-year-old little girl was taken by her father after a domestic fight grew violent. The father, known to have a drug problem, took the young girl from her home and drove erratically off with her in a car. An Amber Alert was issued, and because of the continued press coverage, the man made the decision to return his daughter, and thankfully she was brought to safety. And let's be clear, passage of this amendment will not prevent passage of the underlying bill. If the amendment is adopted, it will be incorporated into the bill, and the bill will be immediately voted upon. So though we may disagree on the bill, today we have the opportunity to speak with one voice to protect our children. It is up to us.
Has expired.
I urge everyone to vote yes on this final amendment.
Who claims time in opposition to the motion to recommit?
Yes, I claim time in opposition to the motion to recommit.
Lady from Tennessee is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that we all agree that this nation's children, our children and our grandchildren, are an incredibly important part of our lives. And protecting those children, protecting their future, Mr. Speaker, this House is not in order.
Order. The gentlelady deserves to be heard. Gentlelady will proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We all agree that it is important that we put this nation on a firm fiscal footing. Now, while we all heartily support the Amber Alert program, we also know there is nothing in H.R. 1076 that would prohibit the Amber Alert program. What we also know is that this is a procedural move by the minority to try to derail the funding to NPR. As I said, as we talked about the bill, it is imperative that we be good stewards of the taxpayer money, that we get this fiscal house in order. It is time to get NPR out of the taxpayer's pocket. The underlying bill does that. I encourage a no vote on the motion to recommit. I encourage an aye vote on 1076, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlelady yields back the balance of her time without objection. The previous question is ordered on the motion to recommit. The question is on the motion to recommit. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The noes have it, and the motion is not agreed to.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for a recorded vote.
The gentlelady asked for the yeas and nays.
Yes, yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having arisen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 8 and Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on the motion to recommit H.R. 1076 will be followed by 5-minute votes on the passage of H.R. 1076 if ordered, and the adoption of House Concurrent Resolution 28. This is a 15-minute vote.
The House has been debating a bill that would prohibit federal funding of national public radio and bar local public stations from using that federal money to pay NPR dues or buy NPR programming. Wrapping up an hour of general debate on that bill. We're going to take your thoughts here in this first 15-minute vote. Here are the numbers. If you're a Democrat, call 202-585-3885. Republicans, 202-585-3886. Independents and others, 202-585-3887. Make sure you turn down the sound, mute your television or radio, and if you have called in and gotten on the air here at C-SPAN in the last month, give others a chance to call in this afternoon. The question for you is, should National Public Radio get federal funding? This first 15-minute vote, a procedural vote, a motion to recommit. Betty Sutton of Ohio looking to include funding for the nationwide Amber Alert system. We expect 2 votes to follow. That would be final passage on the NPR bill and also then the final passage on the War Powers Resolution, which was debated for 2 hours earlier today. First, though, this motion to recommit. Your phones are next. We want to get some background on the NPR bill from a Capitol Hill reporter first. Ken Vogel writes for Politico and covering some of the debate in the House on the NPR bill. Ken, why is the House taking up this bill in the first place?
Well, it's sort of been a long-time bugaboo for conservatives. That is the federal funding to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, as well as directly to National Public Radio, NPR, and to PBS, the television, public television, for years have been targeted by conservatives for being left-leaning in their estimation, the estimation of conservatives. And so this sort of zeitgeist here, bringing together all these factors at this time where NPR and PBS have long been a target, where there's a real effort to cut funding, to cut government spending, and where they sort of seem to believe that they have fresh evidence of this alleged bias in the form of this video sting that was released by the conservative filmmaker activist James O'Keefe, who caught some, whose associates caught some NPR fundraising executives saying some seemingly disparaging things about conservatives on a hidden camera, which was released last week and caused quite a bit of consternation among conservatives and among NPR as well. NPR's both the fundraising executive, who was caught saying the most egregious things on this tape, left prematurely, was already planning to leave, but expedited his departure. And then the NPR president, Vivian Schiller, was forced out by the board as well. So we really have a confluence of factors that has NPR in the crosshairs right now.
Well, the House voted last month to defund the Corporation for Public Broadcasting in that H.R. 1. Will that cut, or if this bill passes, this borrowing of funds for NPR, will they survive in a final spending bill for fiscal year 2011?
Probably not. I mean, there is more chance that the vote to eliminate all federal support for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting for the current fiscal year, which is the vote that you referred to that had previously taken place, there's more chance of that happening than this bill to permanently defund NPR, to permanently bar it and its affiliates. And that's an important point, its affiliates, because even some conservatives, though they may take issue with NPR as a national entity, the NPR affiliates remain a force out there in their districts, and you don't hear necessarily the same level of griping about those affiliate stations. So even if there was a real move afoot to push this more extreme bill that we're seeing the vote being scheduled on for later today, unlikely that either of these measures would pass Senate, and it seems likely that the White House would weigh in against them, given that President Obama has previously expressed support for public funding for public broadcasting.
Ken Vogel of Politico. You can read his articles at Politico.com. Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Now let's get to your phone calls on the NPR bill. They're in this first 15-minute vote, procedural vote here. Dallas is first up. Roberta on our Democrats line.
Yes, I'm in favor of cutting the funding for NPR. I believe that they will still be able to get the funding that they need to stay on the air and for Amber Alert. But if we're about getting our budget under control, then, you know, the taxpayers will still contribute to NPR, regardless via government or not.
Another view from Texas, Hallsville, Texas. John is a Republican there. What are your thoughts?
Yes, I believe they ought to defund it. If the public wants this stuff, let them sit down and write a nice fat check to them. But the taxpayers shouldn't be funding any of this stuff.
The Obama administration today came out against the bill, strongly opposing the House proposal, but no veto threat as of yet against the bill. Here's Long Island and John on our Independence line. Go ahead, John. Long Island, New York, you're on the air. I put John on hold there. I may have lost him there. Let's go on to Palm Beach. Lucille in Florida on our Democrats line. Hi.
Yes, I am against defunding NPR. It's a wonderful station. I love to listen to it, and I don't see the reason why they would want to defund it, because it has nothing to do with whatever they are thinking, or it is just spiteful and mean why they want to cut NPR. Thank you.
Congressman Jim Moran agrees with you, Lucille. His tweet this afternoon, which you can find on our website, on our Twitter page, and all of the members of Congress who participate, he says that defunding NPR is a bad idea. It will do little to rein in our national debt and will result in up to 9,000 jobs lost. We go next to Norwood, Georgia. Patricia on our Republican line. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Doing fine.
I just believe that NPR should be defunded. It's taxpayer money, and right now we need to get our fiscal house in order. That's just pretty much it, getting our deficit in order.
Here we go to Rolla, Missouri, and Jenny is an independent there. Should the federal government be in the position of Rolla, Missouri, and Jenny is an independent there? Should the federal government be in the position of funding NPR? What do you think?
I do not believe that we should be funding NPR or providing assistance to PBS. I believe that the public needs to pick up the bag on these right now with the problems we have in our government and in the world. I just really do believe we need to get out of it. And I enjoy NPR as much as anybody, but I really don't think the government has a place in it anymore.
A number of NPR programs were brought up during the hour here and earlier the hour on the rule debate on the bill. including a Prairie Home Companion. The business section of the New York Times reports today that Garrison Keillor plans to retire in 2013. He made that announcement in an interview with The Bulletin, a publication of ARP, and says that 2013 is the year he plans to leave the program. Here we go to Elizabeth in Louisiana on our Republican line. What do you think, Elizabeth? What do you think of the debate and the bill defunding NPR?
Well, I think NPR will survive without having to have the taxpayer support it. They have generous sponsors. They can still do their fund drives. And I think they'll be fine without the taxpayer having to foot the bill. And if the Democrats are so upset about this, they can redistribute their wealth and they can contribute to NPR.
Here on the House floor, this procedural vote ahead of a final passage vote on the NPR bill. Then we expect a vote on the War Powers Resolution, debated earlier today and brought forth to the floor by Democrat Dennis Kucinich, among others. That'll be coming up shortly. Also coming up shortly in the U.S. Senate, we expect a vote, should be underway, as a matter of fact. It is underway on the temporary spending that was passed in the House earlier this week, passed in the House by a vote of 271 to 158. Well, the Senate's voting on it now. This is the bill that would fund the federal government for 3 weeks beyond this Friday through April the 8th, and you can follow that vote on C-SPAN 2. We also expect later today, in about a half an hour or so, President Obama to make a statement at the White House regarding the situation in Japan. The President's been on Capitol Hill today with the Vice President and the Prime Minister of Ireland, and the traditional St. Patrick's Day lunch on Capitol Hill. The President stopped by the Japanese embassy and paid respects at the embassy, and he will make comments from the Rose Garden coming up at 3:30. That'll be live over on C-SPAN 3. Next up is Sarasota, and Lynette is a Democrat there. Hi there.
Hi. I would just like to say that I just find the whole division of Democrat and Republican, it seems like every single issue now facing this country is divided on whether or not people are Republican or Democratic voters. This severe polarization is just dividing us so strongly with such hatred. This whole issue with NPR and the funding, I don't feel that the funding should be cut, whether I am a Republican or Democrat. I just find that I think the reason that, and again, I hate to use this term because of what I previously said, but I feel that the reason that the Republicans want the funding to be stopped again is because of these recordings that came out. So what if somebody feels that way that works at NPR? Why should the funding be cut because somebody there is against the Republican agenda? You don't think that other stations, there are Republicans working there that are severely against the Democratic agenda?
Lynette, the reason that we at C-SPAN divide our phone lines the way we do is just to give a way for people who identify closely with the Republican, Democratic, or Independent view, a way to divide our phone lines to separate the callers. But we appreciate you calling in. Thanks for your comments. Still in Florida here, Colleen, what city are you calling from? Colleen on a Republican line?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Hi.
all right. Go ahead.
I'm calling from Ormond Beach, Florida.
Okay.
East Central Florida. I just want to say one thing about the parties, first of all. How the parties are defined right now is really up in the air, and it's very narrowly defined to the point where it becomes the whole person. It's only a party affiliation, but what it successfully has done is totally obliterated any concept of party platform. That being said, NPR should continue to be funded simply because it does not result in any savings. It's money well spent. And if they could demonstrate where there was cost savings involved, fine. But the premise is to obliterate what remains of the small independent radio stations out there that did not succumb to having to pay heavy copyright fees when many went under in 2000, 2001. The reason they survive is because of NPR, and they should have the right to continue to do so. Thanks to public funding, the license fees alone are so high. Mm-hmm. and cost prohibitive, that the federal funding assists with that. It is a very small portion of their funding, but no, I don't think the taxpayers should be burdened with contributing more. They have a lot of contributors, including corporate, Koch Foundation, the Koch Industries is one, ExxonMobil. You know, I guess they have to take the funding, but it does not dictate what they program.
All right, let's get a couple more calls here. This is Genevieve in Virginia, Independent Line.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon
I'm
to
from
you.
Mannequin Sabbath, Virginia. I have lived in 7 states. I know all of the issues that surround this particular debate. No, we should not fund NPR. We should not fund any organization that is biased in any way, shape, or form with public money. I understand about the small, isolated radio stations. Trust me, they will continue on. It is time we cleaned our house. It hurts, it's hard, but it is time that we get our house in order. And for that standpoint and that standpoint alone, I vote with the congressmen who feel that NPR should be defunded. Thank you very much.
One more call here. San Bernardino, California. Jorge is on our Democrats line.
Yeah, the reason I'm calling is because it shouldn't be defunded. The simple reason is because my kid is growing up with NPR, as I did. And I don't think that because you're going to save $1 million, $1 billion, you know, my kid will be denied from a richness in the programming, and also because some people in the southern area decide that we don't care what you do or you don't. My kid's education comes from there too. He likes to opera, he likes everything. Why should he be denied when I'm the one paying for that?
How old is your, did you say it's your son?
Yeah, my son is 12-year-old. You know, and he loves NPR.
Jorge, thanks for calling. Thanks for all the calls, and you can continue the conversation online. Facebook.com/C-SPAN. Post your tweets. Twitter.com/C-SPAN. The handle for that is @C-SPAN if you want to post your thoughts on the NPR bill. The final vote on that bill coming up next after this motion to recommit vote, and after that, a vote on the War Powers Resolution, which was debated earlier, and we spoke to a Hill reporter about that debate as well. We are joined by John Donnelly with Congressional Quarterly. What's behind this War Powers debate today in the House?
Well, this is a resolution being offered by Dennis Kucinich, a Democrat from Ohio, which is a privileged resolution under the War Powers Act, which would require the President to take U.S. troops out of Afghanistan. It would basically say they have to be out by the end of the year. So that's what the thing is.
Why would House Republicans give floor time to a debate like this?
I think some of them may want to have a vote on this to demonstrate what they would call their support for the troops. But the simple answer is that, or the short answer anyway, is that as a privileged resolution under the War Powers Act, they don't have any choice in the matter. They have to give them a vote on it.
You've been writing a bit on the debate in Congress on how to pay for war operations in Afghanistan. What are lawmakers arguing about?
Well, I mean, and actually, this is one of the interesting things to listen to Kucinich's argument for his withdrawal resolution. He is citing fiscal reasons as the first thing on his list, and he's hoping, I think, to pick off a few Tea Party members with that kind of rhetoric. Basically, we've spent now with the FY fiscal year 2012 request, we will have exceeded $500 billion in appropriations for the Afghanistan war alone, and in the context of a dire fiscal situation, that argument has a little bit more traction than it used to. Also, we're nearly 10 years into the initiative. You have into the campaign. You have a lot of cost in human life also, and so this is the public opinion polls are showing that the war is less and less popular. 73% of respondents in a poll out this week want U.S. combat troops out of Afghanistan by this summer. 64% think the war is is not worth fighting, and that's up from 44% in 2009. So opinion is definitely shifting against it in the public and in Congress.
Well, given the stagnating state of the fiscal year 2011 debate, the 6th short-term funding resolution, how is the government able to pay for a buildup of troops that President Obama has ordered?
Well, they have enough war money. If they're operating under the stopgap bill, they operate at the fiscal 2010 level, and they have enough war money. But as the Pentagon has argued, they have more than enough for some things and less than enough for other things. And one of the things they have less than they need for is equipping and training Afghan security forces. They are by operating at fiscal 2010 levels, they are operating 26% less funds than they wanted to be operating on in fiscal 2011, and in fiscal 2012 they want another increase of 20-odd%, maybe more, because they're going to increase the number of Afghan security forces that they want to have on the payroll. So they're falling behind in that. And in testimony yesterday, General Petraeus, the commander of troops in Afghanistan, and Michelle Flournoy, the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, said that the consequences could be dire, especially if this continues for a few more months.
John Donnelly covering the Afghanistan policy and fiscal debate on Capitol Hill. He's with Congressional Quarterly. Thank you for that update.
Thank you.
And a vote on that coming up shortly in the U.S. House. Just passed in the U.S. Senate by a vote of 87 to 13, the continuing resolution, the short-term spending bill for fiscal year 2011, passing by a vote of 87 to 13, funding the federal government through April the 8th. Here on the House floor now, they're wrapping up a procedural vote ahead of a final passage vote of a bill that would prohibit federal funding of National Public Radio and bar local public stations from using federal money to pay NPR dues or buy NPR programming. That final passage vote is next, and then the Afghanistan War Powers Resolution will follow that. We mentioned the Senate. They continue this afternoon. You can follow that on C-SPAN 2. They're still in session. At 3:30 this afternoon over on C-SPAN 3, we expect to hear from President Obama and a statement on Japan. The president today visited the Japanese embassy. In fact, just within the last hour or so, he's been by the embassy in Washington, saying that Americans are heartbroken over the disaster in Japan and are confident the country will rebuild. He wrote that message in a condolence book at the embassy in Washington. The president will speak at 3:30. That will be live on C-SPAN 3 and also online at cspan.org.
On this vote, the ayes are 184 and the nays are 235. The motion is not adopted. The question is on the passage of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. No. The noes have it.
Mr. Speaker, ask for a recorded vote.
The gentlelady has asked for a recorded vote. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.